Our scripture lesson today is from Mark chapter 10, verses 46 to 52. And they came to Jericho, and as he was leaving Jericho with his disciples and a great multitude, Bartimaeus, a blind beggar, the son of Timaeus, was sitting by the roadside. And when he heard that it was Jesus of Nazareth, he began to cry out and say, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. And many rebuked him, telling him to be silent. But he cried out all the more, Son of David, have mercy on me. And Jesus stopped and said, Call him. And they called the blind man, saying to him, Take heart, rise, he is calling you. And throwing off his mantle, he sprang up and came to Jesus. And Jesus said to him, What do you want me to do for you? And the blind man said to him, Master, let me receive my sight. And Jesus said to him, Go your way, your faith has made you well. And immediately he received his sight and followed him on the way.
Now, most of us, if we like to admit it or not, are people of habits. We are people who like schedules. We like generally the same thing. Even if we say, oh, I like adventure and all that kind of stuff, we actually like things that are basically this, consider. My mother was a home ec teacher. Don't consider that, but she taught people how to cook. And in all honesty, you only need to know about 10 things, maybe 12 things. Because if you think in your house, how often do you kind of rotate the same 10 to 12 meals through? And that you just know how to cook them. You come in, it falls onto the stove or in the oven, and it's ready. Or restaurants. You go out to dinner. I bet we can go to most restaurants and you can order what you want without even looking at the menu. I mean, it's amazing. You see people that they come in and they go, McDonald's, gee, I wonder what they have. It's like you've never been here before. You want number 1, number 2, number 3. I mean, it's like, come on, they even make it easy for you. Do you want regular Coke or Diet Coke? TV shows. That's why they have those digital recorders, right? In case you don't get there in time to see your show or your story or whatever else. And now they've got the internet, so you have episodes on demand, so if you're like 3 weeks behind, you can catch up and find out who's doing what. Some other ones, radio stations. It's terrible when they change formats. Have you ever noticed that? What was it, 107.3 years ago, used to be an oldies rock and roll station. Now what is it, Talk Sports or something like that? What happened to my Beach Boys? You know, where do you go to find the good old rock and roll? And, there's that PBS station, what is it, real oldies, but it's got a power of what, 2 miles? Have you ever, you can't pick it up out in Greenville. It's just, you just can't get there. Or clothes. You go and the store changes its product mix. Or grocery stores. Have you ever been in the grocery store and you found out that they moved the stuff from one aisle to another? So they have to wander around looking for it so that you can say, oh, wow, there's something new. I just got to buy that or something. We are people and we like habits. We really do, if we're being honest. I don't know if it's quite this bad, our slide, but we like habits. But if you look at our passage this morning, that's going on. Let's start off, we've got Jesus. And you got Jesus and his disciples. Now they have been up in the north of Israel in an area called Galilee. And they've actually been in chapter 8, verse 29 is when they were up at Caesarea Philippi and they were gathered around and Jesus said, well, who do you say I am? And Peter comes out with, you're the Christ, the Son of the living God. And that was just before this. So they're up in Galilee, and roads generally ran through valleys. 2 reasons. 1, it was a lot easier to build close to a riverbank. 2, they didn't have rest areas in those days. They didn't have Howard Johnsons or things like that. If you're ever camping, you need a source of water. So if you're traveling, it's really helpful if the road is close to the river. So they're traveling south down the Jordan River Valley, and the road curves a little bit to the west into this town called Jericho. So they've come in, and Jesus and his disciples, they're heading to Jerusalem for Passover, also for what we know as Good Friday and the cross, and also Easter Sunday morning. So they're heading there, but they're in a large group. There's a whole crowd moving, not just following them, but this is Passover. It's a big deal to celebrate Passover in Jerusalem. So we just had Art Prize a few weeks ago, right? Yes? No? Come on. Good. There was a few extra people in town, right? Just a couple. Because it's a big deal to bring in people. And multiply that by hundreds and thousands. Jerusalem, the population came down, and these whole groups are coming through. So they're going on, this is all very predictable. They're moving down the regular road. They're going through Jericho. They're with a whole large group of people. And you've got this guy named Bartimaeus. You pronounced it just perfectly. In Hebrew, bar means son of. I think they explained that in the passage too. So son of Timaeus, and we know he's blind. And we also know his family didn't really want him because they didn't even give him a name. Think about it. He's just known as son of Timaeus. He's not William or Harry or Bill or anything like that. He has no first name. He's blind. We don't know exactly how blind, but his family kind of looked at him and said, ugh. Any of you folks remember Star Trek: The Next Generation? Remember that show? And it had Geordi who was there. It had that, it was actually like a hair thing or something, was in reality, but they said it was his visor because he was supposedly blind. And in a couple of episodes, they ran into people from other races, and they looked at him and said, why would your parents, they were, usually these were warrior races, why would your parents let you survive? You're blind. Yeah, but with my visor, I can see things you can't see. But sometimes we just discount people who aren't as good as us. Maybe they don't walk as well. Maybe they get aches and pains. I've noticed once you get over 50, you get a lot more aches and pains than you used to have. Get over 60 and you pick up a few more too. Get up in the middle of the night, where's that ibuprofen, try to get back to sleep. Some of you are smiling like, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. So in our youth culture, does that mean that older people, that we don't matter? Does marketing only go for a certain age group and the rest of us, we don't care about them? Bartimaeus is out by the side of the road. He's there. He knows there's a crowd going by. Hey, maybe he can get a month's worth of money. Because he's there and he's sitting on the ground and he has his cloak out over his lap. Because assuming not everybody is a really good thrower, sometimes they might throw over here or over there. He gives them this really big target. Think like a catcher's mitt, this big. He's literally sitting on the side of the road with his cloak over his legs, hoping people will toss some coins at him. And he hears that Jesus goes by. So he calls out in a loud voice, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. Did he have a full-blown Christology, and did he know exactly who Jesus was and all of that kind of stuff? No. He probably has been out on the road calling out. He knows what to call to get a rise out of people. And maybe if I say that, they'll throw some money my way. And I need to eat. So he's calling out in a loud voice. And the people, like his relatives, are saying, hush, 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 quiet, quiet. You're just one of those people that are on the side of the road that we ignore. You're not really important. So he calls out louder. Sometimes we feel like we're getting ignored by everybody else, that we're not important enough, that we're not the person that somebody's actually going to answer our questions. They're telling Bartimaeus to hush up. But he calls out even louder, and then Jesus stops. And he says, bring him over here. And they say, oh, wow, he's going to talk to you. So they bring him over there, and it's like, Jesus goes, so what do you want? Bartimaeus, to get to his place, it may be somebody took him on the way to work and drops him off and picks him up on the way home. Maybe he's learned his way because he can feel the rocks and stones and he knows his way. He has his way set. It's in another passage. It talks about that Jesus stops by a pool in Jerusalem, and a guy has been there for 37 years and waiting to get in. And he asks, do you want to get well? I always said, why in the world would anybody ask someone who is paralyzed would want to get well? But it's like, he's got his treadmill. He knows how to get there. He knows how to get home. He knows what to say. He knows how to get along. You're asking him to get off the treadmill. And we might laugh about it, and we might say that we would never be on the treadmill or anything, but you know what? It is safe on the treadmill. We know what's coming. We know what's expected. We know how to get there. We might grouse about, boy, this thing's squeaky. I wish anybody got any oil so it won't squeak. Or, hey, these rungs are really hard. Can I get some padding on the rungs? But if you say, do you want to get off? Do you want to change your life? There are people who are scared of change. They're scared of saying, life is going to get turned upside down if I do this. So Jesus goes to Bartimaeus. So what do you want? Oh, Bartimaeus, I apologize, I skipped this part. He throws off his cloak and comes to Jesus. He gets off the treadmill. He leaves everything behind. Are we willing to leave everything behind to come to Jesus? For the possibility. There's no guarantee that we're going to get healed. And this time, it was wonderful. There was a miracle. Bartimaeus receives his sight and he follows Jesus. His life changes. We can make some guesses that Bartimaeus made friends with this guy named Peter, who is one of the disciples. And Peter told the story to Mark, who wrote it down, because in neither Matthew or Luke is he named Bartimaeus. So he followed, and he became one of the leaders of the church. But sometimes God doesn't say yes. 2 Corinthians chapter 12, starting at verse 7. This is Paul. Paul was a fairly faithful guy, wouldn't you say? St. Paul running around and everything. He had some issues and things like that, but he was fairly faithful. But this is Paul speaking. This is Corinthians chapter 12, starting at verse 7. To keep me from becoming conceited because of these surpassingly great revelations, there was given me a thorn in my flesh, a messenger of Satan, to torment me. 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away from me. But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. It's wonderful when God does miracles. Sometimes God gives a different answer. The point is, are we willing to get off the treadmill to take the chance? Are we willing to say, I've had enough of my life as it is. I want something different. I want to take the chance for a new life. I want to take the chance of forgiving people that I've been angry with. I don't know if any of you folks have ever been angry with somebody. You just carry that around for a while. My mother used to tell me that it's like when you're wearing too many cloaks in July in North Carolina. It gets hot in July in North Carolina if you've never been there. Trust me, it gets quite warm. And imagine wearing 3 down jackets at the same time. Kind of like this. Except they didn't have down. Theirs was more wool. Really heavy. Tim, you were at Fort Bragg one time, weren't you? Down in that area? Pope Air Force Base?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right next to it. It got warm there. And I know Gary was at Camp Lejeune. It never got hot at Camp Lejeune. Can you imagine being warm like there and carrying all this anger around with you? Is like carrying 4 blankets and 3 overcoats and everything like that, and you're just kind of going, ugh, and you feel like you're going to melt. But do you want to get off the treadmill and forgive people? You can do that. But you have to give up being on the treadmill and change your life. And that's what this is about. Can we change our lives? There's no promise. Yes, Bartimaeus runs up to Jesus, and Jesus says, your faith has made you well. But there are people like Joni Eareckson Tada. I don't know if you're familiar with that name. She was a diver, and she dove into some shallow water and broke her neck. And but she found out she could be an artist. She holds the pen in her mouth, and she draws things. And I remember going to a meeting, this was years ago, and we had a telephone link. She was out in the West, California, I believe. And she was saying that, yes, sometimes it's like, God, you healed all these other people. Why can't you heal me? But it's, my grace is sufficient for you. And in that last days, when you're in heaven, it'll be like the words of Isaiah 40, where it says, and you shall mount up with wings like eagles. You shall run and not be weary. You shall walk and not faint. And maybe some of us who wear glasses won't need them anymore. Whether you can go to the store and buy regular sunglasses. You don't have to get the prescription ones that cost an arm and a leg. You can wake up in the middle of the night and not do like this, looking for your glasses, trying to get them so you can find your way around. And trip over the dog. At least he knows enough to get out of the way now. My grace is sufficient for you. But the point becomes, are we willing to give up our lives, to get off the treadmill, and to come to Jesus and say, I want to be new. Will you make me new? Will you give me a new heart? That's what Bartimaeus did. And that's what we need to do. Because if you do, you'll have a peace that passes all understanding. And a joy which the world can neither give nor take away. Amen.